Hi, it's Dr. Lifton from Brainsplained. So I'm going to answer a question. I'm going to read it. This is from a long time ago. It's from the video about why you're not a bad person. But what if I keep hurting a lot of people I care about in my life? I don't want to, but I keep making the same mistakes and messing up. I paraphrase that all the time and never hold myself accountable for the things I do until I get told what I've done. You can't just blame your poor moral decisions on a bad situation. Any lawyer and judge will tell you the same thing. This doesn't apply to something like weight, but it will to your morals. I was in the wrong environment isn't good enough. I've come to realize recently that I'm not a good person. I don't have a lot to be proud of, and even the few people that do like me, I don't treat them right. I feel like I need some time away from everyone while I become a better person, but it's not possible. I just don't really know what to do. So I have some skills, and if I want to become better at something that I have no skill at, then when I start doing that, I'm going to not be very good at it. And I need to gain those skills. Whatever your hobby is, let's say you're building furniture, the first 30, 40, 50 pieces of furniture you build, they're not that good. And you make a bunch of mistakes. And you don't have the skills to get really good craftsmanship. And when you look at the work, when you look at the piece of furniture that's number 50, it's substantially better than the piece that was number 1. Even just doing something like, even just cutting dovetail joints with a saw. I don't know, when you first start, you can't use a saw. Like you can't cut on the line. And you can't use a chisel. Your chisels, and you don't know how to sharpen the chisels properly. And the joints come out bad. You can watch a video and read a book and have somebody who can mentor you come and help you, and you can practice a lot and spend some time doing it, and the quality of what you're doing improves. It's a skill. And some people don't realize that there's a lot of skill involved in doing relationships, in communicating with people, and in thinking about them, and in thinking about how they're feeling. There's a lot of skill involved in understanding one's own self. It's not about blaming your environment, but also you have to understand how humans work, and you have to understand how brains work, and you have to understand how triggers function and how glimmers function and how you respond to circumstances before you can gain any control over the gap between stimulus and response. The moment between when you get a stimulus and when you get a response is a very, very tricky gap to control. If you had a very significant moral injury and you didn't recover and things come up that remind you of it, it's called a trigger. So just randomly, because I heard about it today, let's suppose that you're in the garage and you on accident aren't paying attention to things properly, and you leave a door open and you think the door is closed, and your dog gets out and gets hit by a car and dies. And you're young. Let's say that happens to when you're, a teenager, 13-year-old or something. That's a thing. It's going to be with you, and it's going to forever be with you, and you're going to have to find a way to forgive yourself, accept what happened, understand it, and come with a way to move forward, which is a process that takes a lot of work. And sometimes you get busy, and so you haven't completed that work. And what happens is 30 years later, now you're 43, and somebody leaves the door ajar, and you get extremely angry, like wildly inappropriately angry or nervous, or start acting weird when the door gets open. That is because you're triggered to this previous event and it hasn't been resolved, and you start acting not like you, but acting more like the little child or the teenager or the person you were at the time that this event shaped you. So you regress into a prior injury, and it happens quickly. It happens very, very quickly. It happens before you know it. And then afterwards, you don't feel too good about what just happened. You're like, oh no, I yelled at people, I was very harsh, and I wasn't myself. Sometimes you'll not even realize that it happened. You don't even know that you were so inappropriate because you weren't even yourself, and somebody else has to come and say, hey, you were really unkind to Joe. All he did was leave the door open. And you're like, oh, I didn't realize. And yeah, you were yelling. You're like, oh, okay. And that's because you weren't even actually you. You were triggered to the younger version that had this particular moral injury. And sometimes there are so many of those, and the events happen so frequently that it can seem like maybe it's a big part of who you are. And it can be for quite a while, especially if the amount of stuff that has to be dealt with is a lot and you're not prepared to do it, or you don't have the skills to get that work done. Maybe you don't have the people who can help with it, the right people who can guide you to seeing that. When people get therapy, a lot of times they complain that it takes forever and that they're there for years and they're not getting better, and it's too much talking about when you were a kid, or too much talking about your mom, especially the traditional, not cognitive behavioral therapy, but the old-fashioned kind. And some of those injuries are just not really honestly resolvable, depending on how bad they were. It isn't about it being perfect. One of the things that is important to do, that I've been doing for a very long time, I don't know, 30 years or something, is when you prepare for the day, first of all, make sure you prepare for the day. If you don't plan out the project, if you don't make plans and you don't know what you're doing, and you just go start cutting wood, it's going to go badly. You should make plans. You should prepare. So every morning you should prepare for the day, and you should do what it takes to make sure that you start on the right foot. If you're a deist, you can have morning prayers, and if you're an atheist, you can have morning affirmations, because it's all the same thing. Whatever you call it, it's preparing to be good today. If you want to do meditation because that's going to get you in the right frame of mind, or you want to go exercise in the morning because that's what you do, or you want to get ready by saying affirmations when you take your shower in the morning, it doesn't matter. But when you do it, when you are a person who isn't happy with yourself, you say, I accept myself unconditionally right now. And when I started that, 30 years ago, when I started that, I could not honestly say I accept myself unconditionally. And so I would say I accept myself unconditionally, even though I am, and then I would comment on some sense of unworthiness, even though I'm not good. Okay, so I was cheating. I couldn't do it. And it took me a few years before it dawned on me that I could do right now, just right now. I'm going to accept myself unconditionally, just right now. And I focused on this 1 second. So I can accept myself unconditionally right now, and I will wait for 2 seconds before I say, but I'm no good. So that was the next step. And then I worked on other parts of that phrase, and now I can accept myself unconditionally right now without having to make a deal that at some future minute, or that right now I actually don't. I secretly don't accept myself. And I can accept myself unconditionally right now with imperfections. It's okay. Because my goal isn't that I'm going to be perfect. I'm not aspiring to be a saint. I'm clearly not going to be like Mahatma Gandhi or something. And it's okay if I'm just a human, working on being the best human that I'm able to be with whatever damage I have that I'm coming into it. And that's a good place to start. Start there. If I can get there, if I can accept myself the way I am, flawed and messed up and imperfect and making mistakes, and if that's okay, then the continuous self-improvement project of growing becomes easier, because when I have anger issues, and I have narcissistic tendency issues, and I have neglect issues, and I have lack of empathy issues, and I have issues with greed and gluttony and all the moral sins and that stuff. When I have that, it's okay. I'm working on it. I'm not perfect. It's what I am. I accept myself. and I can separate the two. I can have the ability to hold the two opposing ideas in harmony. It's called equipoise. I can have equipoise about the fact that, there's a lot wrong with me, but you know what, I'm okay. And when I separate that and I look at what's wrong with me, I can do it with a little bit less passion, with a little bit less despair, and then I can grow, I can move forward. But I can't grow if I can't handle that I have an anger problem. I'm an angry man, and I am not an angry man anymore like I used to be. But I was, and I can handle the fact that, I have to work on this anger problem because I have an anger problem much, much better when I'm okay with me. So in the morning, you need to make a plan, and then you can go about your day and fail, which happens on a regular basis. And then at night, when you do your review of, did I do it, you can see where you failed and how and why. Analysis of why I failed and I got angry anyway. I had a lot of anger for a long time. Sorry to dwell on it. Gets better the more you do it, right? Like cutting dovetails. The more you do it, the better you get. Or using a hand plane. The first time you use a hand plane, it's like, what am I doing? So the first time you do it, you're not good. You don't see the deeper cause of what's causing it, and you need to practice, and you need to get help, and you will improve. It's a skill. But you shouldn't give up on oneself or on other people, and you shouldn't conclude, I'm just as not good person. You're just lacking some skill, and I don't know what the specific skills are, and it doesn't matter, and that, you have to work with somebody on, but these things can be improved, and if you have the desire to do it and you pursue it, then it'll improve. So I hope that's somewhat brain-splained.